These are top 10 of the most creepiest images in history with crazy backstories. This young woman in 1970, the photo above is Genie Wiley. In California, otherwise known as the feral child, barely able to walk at age 13. For her entire life, her father has abused her viciously, keeping her in a makeshift straitjacket in a locked room all day. When she made any sound or did anything, he didn't like it. He'd growl and bare his teeth like a dog. Under such brutal conditions, Willie never learned how to talk, walk, or do anything. When this creepy photo was taken at a hospital just after she was rescued, her life inside a series of abusive institutions was only beginning. Her whereabouts today are unknown. People talk about their times meeting her and how she did not speak at all. She was a very quiet woman because she never learned and she never really was taught how to speak. She was always taught to keep silent. The trophy heads of Māori. Long before Europe colonizers arrived in New Zealand, the native Māori people were preserving the heads of the fallen. Known as Mokomoke people, the heads were chopped off, boiled, smoked, dried in the sun, and dipped in shark oil before being displayed or hung up around like trophies. But when the British moved in during the 1840s, they soon pillaged the Mokomoke for themselves. Major General Horatio Gordon Robley featured in this creepy old picture with his collection, who served in the British Army during the New Zealand land wars in the 1860s, were particularly fascinated as the Māori and stole at least 35 of their heads for themselves. Anatoly Moskvin is a Russian former journalist, college professor, and self-dubbed necropolist. With the expert knowledge of cemeteries for years, his hobby of collecting dolls hid an obsession that drew upon his particular interest, digging up the dead and making dolls out of their corpse. After making his human dolls, he kept them in his home as a companion and lovers. I kissed her once, then again. Moskvin wrote about one of his dolls made from an 11-year-old girl. Police finally caught Moskvin in 2011 after years of increasing suspicion, growing number of desecrated graves in his home city. When they searched his home, they found 26 life-size dolls, or rather mummified corpses, scattered throughout. The 25-year captivity of Blanche Monnier. When French authorities received an anonymous tip in 1901 that a woman was being held prisoner at a house in the city of Poitiers, they sent out officers to search the home. Behind the locked door of a pitch-black attic, they found a really skinny, middle-aged woman lying on a straw mattress with her own excrement, while insects and rotting food littered the floor. The room's odor was so rank that the officers couldn't even continue their investigation, but they were able to learn that the 55-pound woman, still clinging to her life after 25 years trapped in that same room, was named Blanche Monnier, and that captor was her own mother. Till this day, they still don't know why her mother did this to her, but all we know is that mother is a terrible person. Victorian Postmortem portraits. Life life expectancies in Victorian England were tragically low due to the high frequency of disease and lack of proper medical treatment. And because photography was extremely expensive, most people were never able to get their portrait taken. So when young children passed away, their parents often dressed them in the finest clothes they had to sit for their first portrait, creating early lifelike images of kids who have already been gone for days. The Pioneers' Defense. Known as the Pioneers' Defense, this creepy historical image was captured in 1937 by Russian photographer Victor Bula. While certainly an ominous sight, the men, women, and children depicted here were members of the Young Pioneers, the Soviet youth group that akin to the Boy Scouts. They're seen here wearing gas masks during military preparation drills in their area, uncertain of what tomorrow might bring. In the years just before World War II, while their home country was seeing waves of death, terror under dictator Joseph Stalin. 4 children for sale. This haunting photo from 1948 reveals just that poverty can destroy a family. Mr. and Mrs. Ray Calfox were facing eviction from their Chicago apartment. At the time, they desperately needed money, so the unemployed coal truck driver and his wife opted to sell their kids. Though members of the Calfox family have claimed that the mother was paid to stage the image, the children in fact were sold to different homes within 2 years. Worse yet, the children, Lana, 6 on the top left, Ray, year 5 on the top right, Milton, age 4 on the bottom left, and Sue, Ellen, 2 on the bottom right, were known to be been terribly abused by their new families thereafter. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Anneliese Michel was a Catholic teenager living a normal life with her parents in Germany in the late 1960s. But then she began blacking out at school before exhibiting increasingly strange behaviors, routinely convulsing, hallucinating, and eating spiders, even drinking her own urine. Michel claimed to be possessed by the devil, and her parents soon came to the conclusion that they ultimately subjected her to 67 exorcisms, none of them which improved her condition before she died of malnutrition at the age of 23 in 1976, weighing just around 68 pounds. Her story was so disturbing that it eventually inspired the 2005 horror film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, before I continue, I just gotta warn you, this image that you're about to see is extremely disturbing, and I'm just warning you, if you want to click off now, you can. The spontaneous combustion of Mary Reeser. On the morning of July 2nd, 1951, in St. Petersburg, Florida, Mary Reeser's landlady went to the old woman's apartment to deliver a telegram and noticed that her door was warm to the touch. Upon opening the door, she found Reeser almost completely reduced to a pile of ashes laying on the floor, scorched remains of her chair. A part of her left leg and her skull, shrunken far beyond its normal size, were all that remained. Local authorities were unable to determine any cause of the blaze, and the rest of the apartment was largely devoid of fire damage. When they sent the case to the FBI, they determined that Reeser had gone up in flames like the wick of a candle. with her own body fat steadily feeding the fire, but they too were baffled as to how the blaze started in the first place. To this day, it's widely believed that this was a case of spontaneous human combustion. Michael Rockefeller's death by cannibalism. Michael Rockefeller, in the center, the son of New York Governor and soon-to-be U.S. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, disappeared somewhere in Papua New Guinea in the early 1960s. Seen here on his first trip there in May 1960, Rockefeller's smile belies his grim fate. It's believed he was killed and eaten by the Asmat people. The Asmat people being the people all around him. He was killed and eaten by a cannibal group, which is the Asmat people, known to behead their enemies and consume their flesh. The cause of why they ate him? Because they were starving due to world hunger. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that like button. And also, subscribe if you want to see more creepy videos like this. I hope you enjoyed this, my first ever creepy video. And if you don't like and subscribe, I'll turn you into Michael Rockefeller.